about to start the inaugural session of our Interfaith Conference. May we kindly ask you all to take your seat. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, may we kindly ask you to take your seats? We will be starting in 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
وي ماشي هنا
كاين ما سورتي اسبانيول
كاين انجليزي هنا انجليزي
اسبانيول سي بون
ها هو جاي الشويرف ها هو جاي
انا هذه التلفون ايوا
هو جاي خصو يكون هنا
Merci. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to start the inaugural session for the Global Parliamentary Conference on Interfaith Dialogue. May I kindly ask you all to rise for the national anthem of the Kingdom of Morocco.
Non, ok.
Distingués délégués et représentants,
distinguished delegate and representative of guest countries, it's a genuine pleasure for all of us to have you among us today more than ever before for the opening of the first global conference of the Inter-Parliamentary Union on Interfaith Dialogue to give to read out a royal message sent by His Majesty Mohammed VI of the Kingdom of Morocco to our conference. I am pleased to invite the President of the Chamber of Representatives of Morocco to read out the message of His Majesty, the King. Your Royal Highness, Your Majesty, in the name of Allah, most merciful, peace and blessing be on our Prophet, his kith and kin. Your Excellency, President of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, Your Excellencies, heads of legislative institutions, distinguished representatives of religious institutions and bodies, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I should like to say how pleased I am with your choice of the Kingdom of Morocco as the venue for this important international conference. This event is special not only on account of the topic it will address, but also because of the caliber of the participants. Indeed, your conference has brought together for the first time parliamentarians in their capacity as legislators and representatives of their fellow citizens, as well as a large number of religious leaders distinguished scholars, experts, and researchers from all the corners of the world. They will study and exchange views on an important topical issue whose implications are clear to all in the current international and regional contexts. I wish to welcome all participants in this forum and to commend the Moroccan Parliament and the Inter-Parliamentary Union on holding this conference and aptly choosing the theme of interfaith dialogue for it. I hope your discussions and debates will lead to constructive conclusions and recommendations, as well as to new approaches that can highlight the need for interfaith dialogue and define the nature of the relations that should bring together the followers of different religions, making sure harmony, peace, and mutual respect prevail. Needless to say, the Inter-Parliamentary Union has acquired great expertise from the various meetings, conferences, and fora it has been convened on topics and issues relating to the theme of today's conference. It's thus well positioned to enrich your discussions and debates and make qualitative contributions to your proceedings, building on the innovative approaches to be introduced by various presentations and papers on interfaith relations, which should be grounded in serious, meaningful, and constructive dialogue. Ladies and gentlemen, humanity is facing daunting challenges. It's grappling with a situation marked by security, economic, political, health, and environmental crises on one hand, and sincere efforts to use mechanisms, tools, and energies to address or contain these crises on the other. Today's conference clearly attests to that resolve. It's part of a collective endeavor to develop a plan of action for parliamentarians and religious leaders for both national and international action. One must keep in mind the alarming conditions existing in our world today amid calls for extremism, self-centeredness, hatred, and reclusiveness, not to mention terrorist acts that exploit the situation to foment subversive projects in the name of religion, whereas religion has nothing to do with this. Here and there, public opinion is misled into believing that what is unfolding is a clash of religions or civilizations. In fact, and as I stressed more than 20 years ago at the opening of the 107th Conference of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, what our world is witnessing today is not so much a clash of civilization as a clash of ignorances. Ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed regrettable that we keep hearing about acts of violence, persecution, and killing motivated by religious and sectarian beliefs or cultural affiliation. It's also distressing to note that hostility to religions has become a favorite subject used by some as part of their outbidding electoral tactics. We also regret that some public debate platforms, including a number of audiovisual media, find it quite normal that the other be stigmatized because of religion, color, or ethnicity, with all the risks this kind of attitude entails for people's consciousness and culture and the incitement of public opinion. The memory of mankind still bears witness to acts of genocide and devastating wars triggered by discourses and ideologies rooted in religious bigotry or sectarian and ethnic intolerance. Contrary to international human rights covenants to which the international community has adhered, ideologies and discourses based on natural inequality, which categorize people according to their religion, origin, or the color of the skin, are thriving today. They are presented and showcased as normal, legitimate doctrines. These are particularly negative signs when it comes to the future of interfaith, intercultural relations. They require all forces and stakeholders believing in equality between religions, between civilizations, between the children of Adam, come together to reverse this trend and adopt policies that would stem this perilous decline in human consciousness. It goes without saying that the institutions represented in this conference are at the heart of the lofty battle for the promotion of understanding, tolerance, and coexistence through institutional action, awareness raising, and education. Fanaticism does not reside in religions, nor does it exist in religious books. Rather, it's spurred and guided by the interests lurking behind fanatic acts and beliefs. There is no clearer evidence as to the greatness of the unity of religions than these words by Almighty God. Say yea, we believe in Allah and the revelation given to us and to Abraham, Ismail, Isaac, Jacob's and the tribes that given to Moses and Jesus, and that given to all prophets from their Lord. We make no difference between one another, and we bow to Allah. The cow, verse 136. Ladies and gentlemen, the bleak picture reflected by the conflict of beliefs in the world today should not obscure the positive and bright aspects, nor the bold initiatives launched to strengthen communication and consolidate values rooted in tolerance, understanding, and coexistence between the members of the international community, and between coexistence and between followers of different faiths. It's gratifying to note that there are men and women with a keen sense of conscience, as well as responsible political decision makers and sagacious, enlightened thinkers in the West as well as in the East, in the South as in the North, who shoulder the responsibility of combating hatred and promoting dialogue and understanding between different faiths, cultures, and civilizations. I am delighted that all of you who are gathered here today are part of these political elites, religious leaders, intellectuals, and thinkers who believe that mankind's mission on earth, as willed by the Almighty God, is for people to get to know and cooperate with one another and to exist regardless of religious or doctrinal differences. That is the responsibility and sacred mission of all humans. I am convinced that if those elites were to come together, then interfaith dialogue, meaningful coexistence, understanding, and cooperation for the accomplishment of humanitarian goals would be key levers to build on in order to spare humanity the evils of strife, affliction, and suffering. However, that cannot be achieved, and this, by the way, is one of the matters at stake in this conference, unless we put words into action, show a keenness to revisit the concept of interfaith dialogue, and achieve a quantum leap in collective awareness of the importance of dialogue and coexistence, and of the perils represented by persistent reclusiveness, fanaticism, and introversion. I do hope the Marrakesh conference will come up with a rational and convincing response to the drifts towards intolerance, hatred, contempt for religions, and the treatment of people based on their faith, ethnicity, or the color of their skin. I am sure your diverse political, intellectual, and religious backgrounds constitute a key element for the fulfillment of this ambition, whereas the parliamentarians participating in this conference are empowered to pass legislation that facilitates dialogue and staves off discourses of introversion and fanaticism. Religious leaders and institutions, for their part, have a mission of guidance and awareness raising. They can summon their spiritual authority to groom and guide and to warn against perilous inclinations that ruin coexistence and fruitful interfaith dialogue. We should realize that fearing a given religion, or to put it more correctly, prompting feelings of fear of that religion, leads to hatred for the manifestations of that faith and for the civilizations associated with it. This then leads to incitement against that religion, to discrimination and to acts of violence. Unfortunately, many influential media organizations simply encourage, in their editorial line, a spiral of fanaticism and counter-fanaticism. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that your conference will lead to action plans and that the three components represented here will play decisive roles in their implementation at the level of each country as well as on a global scale. In this regard, I wish to emphasize the need to set a joint mechanism to be coordinated by the Inter-Parliamentary Union, whose mission would be to make interfaith dialogue a common, lofty goal for the entire international community. That goal should be defended in international fora and considered one of the key principles of underpinning democratic governance in parliamentary practice, as well as an indicator of respect for pluralism and cultural diversity. Since the very basis of coexistence is for religion to serve as a bulwark against extremism and not a vehicle for it, the enforcement of this principle, together with due respect for other faiths, require pedagogical and educational efforts by schools, universities, the media, religious institutions, and responsible public debate platforms. With that in mind, I hope your conference's declaration will include practical suggestions to achieve this lofty objective. I am sure you do realize from your respective positions, ladies and gentlemen, the devastating consequences of disrespect and contempt for religions, the scale of the internal and transnational disasters they may cause, and their human and material cost to international stability, which is a prerequisite for institutional and democratic development and for progress and prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, the Kingdom of Morocco is keen to remain a model state in which the followers of the monotheistic religions coexist in an environment of fraternity and security. This policy is consistent with my country's centuries-long history of religious and cultural diversity and pluralism. Indeed, for centuries, Muslims, Jews, and Christians coexisted on this land and continue to do so. It was this land of Morocco that welcomed and protected thousands of people, Muslims and Jews, who fled religious persecution in the Iberian Peninsula during the 15th and 16th centuries. Contemporary history records that my grandfather, His late Majesty King Mohammed V, may he rest in peace, provided care and protection to thousands of followers of the Jewish faith who were fleeing persecution from Nazi-allied Vichy government. And when King Mohammed V ascended the throne of his worthy ancestors, my vulnerable father, His late Majesty King Hassan II, may God rest his soul, remained faithful to that same policy throughout his reign, providing care to the Moroccan citizens of Jewish faith. His keen desire to consolidate the values of coexistence and brotherhood among all Moroccans, Muslims and Jews alike, remained undimmed. History also records that His late Majesty King Hassan II, blessed be his soul, received His Holiness Pope John Paul II in 1985 in what was the first visit ever by a pope to an Islamic country. 34 years after that historic visit, I received in March 2019 His Holiness Pope Francis, Sovereign of the Vatican. I invited His Holiness to come on an official visit to Morocco because I believe in the virtues of interfaith dialogue and in the importance of directing the efforts of religious authorities to serving peace, cooperation, and fraternity among all humans. Since I ascended the throne, I have sought to enhance the spirit of brotherhood, coexistence, cooperation, and cohesion between all Moroccans, Jews and Muslims alike, given that this is one of the main pillars of Moroccan civilization. The urban fabric of Moroccan cities is replete with signs that are of great significance, with mosques, synagogues, and churches standing not far from one another. These are not just necessities of urban development, rather, they attest to the spiritual, human, and cultural values inherent in Moroccan society and to the importance of the tolerance underpinning it. Ladies and gentlemen, although Islam is the religion of the state, the kingdom's constitution stipulates that the state guarantees the free exercise of religious practices for all citizens. As I have always affirmed, in my capacity as King of Morocco and Commander of the Faithful, I am entrusted with ensuring the free practice of religious rights, as well as the protection of Moroccan Jews and Christians from other countries who live in Morocco. Given Morocco's record with respect to promoting religious coexistence and moderation, it's quite natural for the kingdom to be among the first countries to establish international mechanisms for cultural dialogue and to take the necessary measures to combat terrorism, extremism, and fanaticism. This is evidenced by the convening in November 2022 of the 9th session of the Alliance of Civilizations Global Forum, which was held in Fez, a city as steeped in history as it is committed to interfaith coexistence. Moreover, I was particularly keen to make sure the Kingdom of Morocco made a significant contribution to the establishment and structuring of that forum and see to it that it meets on a regular basis. Indeed, I believe that the forum provides a platform of action for the future, and that is a means to promote cultural concord and peace and a lever to facilitate coexistence. With the same resolve, Morocco contributed to the establishment of other mechanisms and continues to act to bolster their role and host their meetings, as is the case with the International Conference on Dialogue Between Cultures and Religions and the Conference on the Rights of Religious Minorities in Islamic Lands. In a similar vein, I am sure you are aware of Morocco's decisive and effective contribution to the establishment and structuring of the Global Counterterrorism Forum, co-chaired by the Kingdom of Morocco for the 3 terms between 2015 and 2022. These are principled, proactive policies warranted by our responsibilities and obligations towards all components of the international community. Ladies and gentlemen, my firm belief in the importance of coexistence and dialogue is second only to my commitment to moderation and tolerance, and to the rejection of all forms of prejudice, hatred, and extremism. I'm convinced as well of the need to implement policies that facilitate the achievement of these goals. In this regard, I am proud of what has been accomplished in Morocco concerning the management of the religious domain and the performance of the institutions created for this purpose, including the ones provided for in the constitutions, and in particular the Higher Scholar Council, the only institutions qualified to issue fatwas. The aim is to prevent any deviation from the purpose of fatwas. I think we can pride ourselves on the accomplishment of the religious supervisory institutions I have created to foster the values of moderation, tolerance, and coexistence. I am referring in particular to the Mohammedia League of Scholars, one of the main partners in the organization of this conference, the Mohammed VI Institute for the Training of Theologists, Murshideen and Murshidats, and the Mohammed VI Foundation of African Scholars, which brings together and coordinates the efforts of African Muslim scholars in order to shed light on and promote these values. This is in keeping with my commitment to the duty of solidarity and spiritual cooperation with our brothers and sisters in the other African countries. We should keep in mind that if we manage to foster constructive interfaith, intercultural dialogue, we'll be providing answers to many of the dilemmas and challenges threatening the future of coexistence and of our planet. All of us are in the same boat, facing a common destiny. As we rise to challenges, we must ponder on the world we will be bequeathing to the coming generations and future generations. This is as much the responsibility of parliaments, religious institutions, and intellectual elites, as it is the duty of governments, civil society, and the media. Before concluding, I would like once again to welcome you to Morocco as our honored guest in our home, away from your home, the land of tolerance, coexistence, diversity, and fraternity, the venue of fruitful meetings on some of the most important issues. The aim is to serve humanity and the future mankind. I wish your conference every success. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mohammed VI, King of Morocco. Again, I'd like to once again to welcome you to Morocco as our honored guest in your home, away from home, the land of tolerance, coexistence, diversity, and fraternity, the venue of fruitful meetings on some of the most important issues. The aim is to serve humanity and the future mankind. I wish your conference every success. Thank you. Peace and blessing be on you. Drafted in the Royal Palace of Rabat, corresponding to the 9th of June 2023, Mohammed VI, may Allah grant you a long life. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we have just heard, this conference is designed to bring together speakers of parliament, parliamentarians, religious leaders, NGOs, faith-based organizations, and scholars to discuss the burning issues of our time, to share good practices on how to address these challenges, and to help chart a way forward, a concerted way forward, to build sustainable coexistence, promote respectful and inclusive societies, and advance towards a more peaceful and just world. To help put all this into perspective, I am pleased to introduce a brief video on our shared vision. Can we please see the video?
It is clear the dialogue between the Abrahamic religions is insufficient. At a time when paradigms are shifting everywhere and concern all matters, interreligious dialogue must evolve too. The dialogue centered on tolerance has been going on for a long time now, and yet it has not achieved its goal.
Imagine a world where all humanity's colors blend together in perfect harmony, where every voice matters and every belief is respected. Our world is facing monumental challenges: climate change, new pandemics, conflicts and disruptions from technological advancements. These challenges demand unprecedented cooperation among nations, cultures, and religions. Throughout history, diversity has been the driving force behind our evolution and creativity. It allows us to learn from one another, strengthen our mutual understanding, and face the darkness of an unknown future together. Morocco, guided by its monarchy, celebrates diversity on a daily basis, preserving and valuing the respect for different beliefs and traditions. It is an inherent nature of the unifying symbol of the throne, the commander of the faithful, encompassing believers of all faiths without distinction, illuminating the path during dark periods of humanity. When King Mohammed V provided refuge and sanctuary to Jews during Nazism. Alone, we may feel helpless, but united, we can only move forward. There is no choice but to break down barriers and build bridges between peoples through interreligious dialogue. By fostering exchange and mutual understanding, we can collectively advance towards a better future. From this land of diversity, this crossroads of civilization, we all carry the hopes of today and tomorrow. The task is arduous, but it begins here, in Marrakesh, with each and every one of you.
It is now my distinct pleasure to invite to the podium to deliver his opening remarks the President of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, Mr. Duarte Pacheco.
Mr. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Speaker of the House of Councillors, Madam Speakers of Parliament, Mr. Speakers of Parliament, parliamentarians, Secretary General of IPU, distinguished leaders, religious leaders, leaders from beliefs and from civil society organizations and academia, members of diplomatic corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to say also abraço aos amigos de língua portuguesa. It's an honor to address you all at this inaugural ceremony of the Parliamentary Conference of Interfaith Dialogue, working together for our common future. And what a delight is to be here in this beautiful and historical city of Marrakesh. I wish to thank you to the Parliament of the Kingdom of Morocco for hosting this unique event at the Palais de Congrès. Your commitment to organize this event was amazing. Without your commitment, we are not here. Thank you so much for all your efforts, Mr. Speaker, and from the staff of your Parliament as well. And it is a moment of nostalgia also to the IPU, to come back to this venue where we held our 170th Assembly 20 years ago. It's always good to come back to a place where we were happy. Excellencies, What amazing message we received from His Majesty, the King of Morocco. A message of tolerance, of peace. A message that explains exactly the meaning of this meeting. We live in a very small world. A very small world. Where we should live together in peace and harmony, respecting each other, and knowing that the life is too short to avoid any kind of conflicts and wars. I thought a few months ago that we learned from the pandemic that how a small virus that is impossible to see with our own eyes spread around the world in just a few months. Better, just in a few weeks. And affect all of us, rich and poor, north and south, ladies and gentlemen, people from different faiths, cultures. It shows to all of us how small is our home that we call Earth. Unfortunately, I discovered we didn't learn the lesson that maybe God sent to all of us, because many conflicts persist in our society. And we need to understand that as Morocco has a long history of coexistence between different religions and beliefs, we should express this in all our countries, in all our world. Our conference stands in a long line of distinguished interfaith events that happen here in Morocco. But I also wish to express a gratitude to our partners, Special Relations for Peace, who have worked with us closely throughout the preparation of the process. The United Nations Alliance for Civilizations and Mohammedan League of Religion Scholars have further supported the preparations of a strong, varied, and inclusive program during these days of the conference. Friends, yes, we emerged from a pandemic, but I think that what we are suffering is much more than that. A world is suffering from a crisis of solidarity, where the rule of law, the foundation of our societies, is becoming more fragile. We are based by many crises: armed conflicts, increasing inequalities, the climate emergency, ecological degradation, just to name just a few. No country is unaffected. Each of us has a story to tell. These are complex problems which require joint solutions. Religion and beliefs are important to many people. They influence our identity, values, and decision-making process. They affect how people participate in society. Because they matter to our constituents, they must matter to us as parliamentarians, their representatives. Even though parliamentarians and religious beliefs have different mandates, they share the common goal of serving their communities and promoting the well-being. They could be allies in our common cause for social justice and peaceful coexistence. We all know God is peace. And God condemns all kinds of words. That's why we need to condemn any kind of attacks to church, synagogues, mosques, that are sacred places where people join to pray, never a place that should be attacked. We need to condemn the terrorism and fanatism. Nearby, here in Sahel region, where many people die every year because of the fanatism expressed from some people that talk about religion, but I don't believe they believe in their own religion. Ladies and gentlemen, the mode of this conference is working together for our common future. And what a better place to begin that with encourage dialogue, a core mandate of the IPU. In the past decades, the IPU has been continuously addressing issues of inclusion, coexistence, and peace in its work. In our assembly in Quebec City in 2012, parliaments recognized the importance of balancing respect for diversity with social inclusiveness. These were tools for building trust, progress, and prosperity. 10 assemblies after it, in St. Petersburg, 2017, our members recognized that dialogue with faiths, cultures, and ethnicities is essential to peace and cultural pluralism. During our last assembly in Manama, parliaments acknowledged the importance of dialogue, education, and awareness raising as a tool for countering intolerance and fostering inclusion and peaceful coexistence. We believe we are doing something historic today. When I look in front of me, I see a truly diverse group. In addition to our parliamentarian community, represented by over 60 high-level delegations, we also have government officials, leaders of religions and beliefs, representatives of interregional and interreligious councils, faith-based organizations, academia, and other civil society organizations. We have gathered here today to look at how our collective experience can be harnessed to be a betterment of a society. Times of crisis and uncertainty especially call for solid leadership to bring people together around a common vision of the future. There are many fruits that can come from this dialogue. As parliamentarians, our work can benefit from a stronger consultation mechanisms with broader society. We can strengthen anti-discrimination legislation, ensuring equal treatment for all under the law. We can develop parliamentary mechanisms to promote interfaith and intercultural dialogue. With one voice, we can all speak out for more solidarity, moderation, and inclusion. We can advocate for the upholding of fundamental human rights, such as freedom of thought, conscience, religion or belief, freedom of assembly, and freedom of expression. My friends, you are welcome here in the spirit of IPU. We are engaging in a meaningful dialogue that is anchored in human rights and our common desire to work for a world in which no one is left behind. This is the first interreligious meeting of IPU. We will work harder during these days, but our work will not finish the day after tomorrow. We need to work at home, but also together. And that's why in 2025, I may announce that we will organize the second interfaith meeting in Rome, another place where the different religions may be together working for peace. And this way, dear colleagues, we express to the society and to the people we represent that this work needs to be done day by day, because we believe just tolerance and respect will help us to build a better world for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. May I now invite to the podium the Secretary General of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, Mr. Martin Chungong.
Thank you very much, Madam Director of Ceremonies. You've disappeared to the background. Honorable Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of Morocco, Honorable Speaker of the Chamber of Councillors of the Kingdom of Morocco, Your Excellency the President of the IPU, my very good friend, Mr. Duato Pacheco, Honorable Representative of Religions for Peace, Madam Ogo Chukwu, is that how they call that name? My sister from Nigeria, welcome. Distinguished speakers of parliament, fellow parliamentarians, representatives of religions, beliefs, faith-based civil society organizations and academia, dear ladies and gentlemen. I would like to echo what the Honorable Pacheco, President of the IPU, has just said here in thanking the Parliament of the Kingdom of Morocco, its leadership, for hosting us today at this very historic meeting. We are appreciative of your generosity and commitment to this joint noble endeavor. Let me also thank all the partners who have been involved in preparing this meeting with the Inter-Parliamentary Union, Religions for Peace, the Muhammadiyah League of Religious Scholars, the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, and many others. We are gathered here today, as the President of the IPU has just said, in a historic fest. The IPU convening a parliamentary meeting of global proportions on something that is very topical, as we did hear from His Majesty, the King of Morocco. Of course, we are very pleased to be in this city of Marrakesh, which has a special place in the hearts of the IPU, having hosted, as the President said, the 107th Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union 20 years ago. But we also know the city of Marrakesh as being famous for its history of coexistence between different religions and beliefs. Above all, I would like to recall that this city in 2012 commemorated a very important document promoting coexistence, the Marrakesh Declaration on the Rights of Religious Minorities in the Muslim World recalls a document from the 7th century called the Charter of Medina. It was the first written constitution in Islam which regulated relations between the Muslim Prophet Muhammad, his followers, and the residents of Medina. That city included Jews. This constitution detailed the rights and duties of the citizens of Medina, regardless of their religion. It marks, as we just heard from His Majesty the King of Morocco, an important example of citizenship and conflict resolution in interfaith relations. At the Inter-Parliamentary Union, we also have a very long history of promoting citizenship and conflict resolution, maybe not 1,400 as in Medina, but it is part of our DNA. Since its establishment in 1889, the Inter-Parliamentary Union has been relying on the tools of parliamentary dialogue and diplomacy to work towards more peaceful and democratic societies with strong institutions and values. The work of the Inter-Parliamentary Union is governed and guided by 5 core values: equality, inclusiveness, respect, integrity, and solidarity. In particular, the IPU is committed to convening parliamentarians who mirror society in all its diversity. Inclusion especially lies at the core of our work. Our current strategy encourages parliaments to incorporate a wider view of the stakeholders, interactions, and dynamics that influence parliaments and parliamentarians to understand themselves as part of a broader ecosystem of different stakeholders for democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where the influence of religion and belief on the identity and values of people, and in many cases, on politics, cannot be underestimated. More than 4 out of 5 people worldwide identify with a religion. Many of you live in states where God is mentioned in the Constitution, others where legislation must align with religious law, others live in systems which are based on the separation of religion from the state. On the basis of this, we have integrated engagement with religion and belief into our work. It is my pleasure to share with you today part 1 of the parliamentary report on religion and belief. In this report, we consider the institutional engagement of parliaments with religion or belief. The report draws on research and good practices shared by our member parliaments and by experts in the field. It considers different ways in which parliaments as institutions engage with religion or belief, such as reserved seats for religious minorities, parliamentary committees dealing with religion or belief, prayers that are held at the beginning of sessions, parliamentary dress codes, commemorations of religious events by Parliament, to name just a few. As a point of illustration, the cover picture, which you have on your screen there, the cover picture of our report, is from the Parliament of New Zealand. Following the Christchurch mosque attacks in 2015, the Parliament suspended its rules on allowing strangers to enter the debate chamber, inviting representatives of the Islamic, Jewish, Buddhist, Sikh, Hindu, Ratana, Catholic, Anglican, and Presbyterian faiths and churches to address Parliament. We invite you to consider this publication, and more than that, to share your own experiences with us. This report is intended to be a living document that will continue to grow as more parliaments share their good practices. After this conference, we will produce part 2 of the report, which will look at the experiences of parliamentarians engaging with these issues. If any of you here, parliamentarians and others, would be interested in sharing your experiences with us, please do not hesitate to approach my colleagues. Now, coming to our present conference, we are here to continue this interaction between some of the most influential actors in our societies: parliamentarians on the one hand, and representatives of religion and belief on the other. Like His Majesty the King of Morocco, we believe strongly that interfaith dialogue can and must be an important enabler of peace. In the coming days, we want to consider and build on what we have in common, such as our shared belief in human dignity and the need for to pull together towards securing a future for generations that will come after us. We would like to find ways to engage together and build more peaceful, inclusive, and just societies where the rule of law prevails, the fundamental freedoms for all human beings are respected, and no one is left behind. Honorable speakers, ladies and gentlemen, we have a unique opportunity here to share our thoughts and experiences, to identify common challenges, and to learn from the wealth of good practices out there. So, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Morocco, and specifically to Marrakesh, and to encourage a spirit of exchange guided by respect and our common desire to work for a better world. I wish you a most successful conference. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Messieurs, comme il a été souligné, donc notre conférence va être organisée par l'UPI et le gouvernement du Maroc, en particulier pour la promotion de la paix.
it is very much in line with our new ecosystem approach as reflected in the IPU strategy. Co-chair of the Nigerian and African Women of Faith Network, and chair of Religions for Peace International Women's Coordination Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the MC. His Majesty, King Mohammed VI of Morocco, here ably represented, the President of Inter-Parliamentary Union and his Secretary, the Honorable Speakers and Members of Parliament of the Kingdom of Morocco, the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, eminent and respected leaders and representatives of various religious, faith, and other organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Religions for Peace, I bring you greetings of peace. It is a great privilege and honor for me to address this high-level inaugural ceremony in the name of our great global multi-religious movement, the Religions for Peace. With all that is confronting us today, we cannot but agree that the world is indeed at a turning point in history. In societies that are under stress as a result of political, security, or other forms of instability. One of the warning signs and powerful triggers of violence is when we close up to dialogue. We have all seen the tragic consequences of our failure to prevent serious violations of human rights or to uphold the rule of law. Our inactions have caused immense suffering, undermined prospects for peace and development, and have left scars on communities and societies which can take generations to heal. As an African myself, I cannot fail to draw the attention of this global audience meeting on this African soil to the fact that more than any other continent, Africa is carrying the greatest burden of the world's social vulnerabilities. We can see this in the high level of conflicts, insecurity, poverty, human rights atrocities, all resulting in slow development. Africa needs effective global attention to her overwhelming problems, and this for the ultimate good of our entire human family. Salvaging the universe must begin by investing more on addressing vulnerabilities for sustainable peace. Managing the world's fragile peace means engaging in several evidence-driven interventions, including sincere dialogue. The responses to numerous violent conflicts should be tailored to the specific realities and context of the conflict and the environment. At this juncture, religion remains a significant component, but must not work in isolation, rather, with other key components, especially with governments and their parliaments. This is the essence of the Religions for Peace that has worked very closely with the United Nations and the Inter-Parliamentary Union for many years in creating a beloved community where conversations emanate from faith, justice, equality, and respect for human life and rights. As the world's oldest, largest, and most representative multi-religious leadership platform, Religions for Peace advances common action among the world's faith communities for peace. Unlike any other interfaith organization, Religions for Peace works through legally registered representatives, multi-religious platforms called interreligious councils, present in over 90 countries of the world and 6 regions. It convenes to catalyze and promote multi-religious collaboration for the common good. Multi-religious collaboration entails all religious and indigenous communities coming together and working together for the common good. This builds trust, fosters relationship, advances better understanding, promotes acceptance of the other, allowing for deep, integrated conversations and experiences. As we foresee heavy clouds of impending tempest looming over our beloved Mother Earth, we cannot just sit back, complaining, or merely waiting for the worst to happen. As the title of this conference suggests, we must find ways to work together for our common future. Hence, Religions for Peace welcomes this conference here in Morocco as a channel that will open up for a better collaboration between the parliamentarians and multi-religious leaders, and with a very productive cooperation between the Inter-Parliamentary Union and Religions for Peace. Our legacy is long and our work prolific. It is obvious that one of the major works of parliamentarians is to make laws and policies for the state. But if there are no proper synergy between the parliament and religions, much may not be achieved. Thus, dialogue on common action becomes most important. This is the reason why Religions for Peace has continually strived for the very reason we are gathered here today, to ensure there is continued worldwide dialogue and respect for diversity, inclusion, trust, cohesion, and peace with justice among all our communities and society. The countless lessons learned over 5 decades of Religions for Peace experience affirms the need for continued dialogue and interaction, where religious and political leaders can come together to discuss, assess, reflect critically, and inspire one another. We all understand that many are struggling to cope with rebuilding broken infrastructures, healing social divisions, and we must insist in offering spaces for interaction and dialogue in making laws and policies with human face. Therefore, Religions for Peace is deeply honored to be part of this conference co-organized by the government of Morocco and the Inter-Parliamentary Union. Ladies and gentlemen, may I, on behalf of the Religions for Peace, most respectfully welcome you once again to this transformative conference. I am convinced that the 3 days we will spend here will help us to discover the pleasant truth that despite our differences, what we have in common are far more important than our differences. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude, we are reminded again why we are here today. It is to help build a more peaceful and just world for the future generations, and it is their voice that needs to be heard. Therefore, we are very, very pleased to have with us today 2 young and very inspiring peace builders, Ms. Hila Yoon of Afghanistan and Mr. Ildefonso Nyokondi of Burundi. I would like to invite them both to the podium and let us all hear their message. Thank you.
Excellence, Honorable
Parliamentarians, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. It's an honor and a privilege for me to really stand right in front of you to testimony and testify about the young voices who occupy the community of nations in the world, ensuring dialogue, interfaith dialogue. I am very appreciative for the panel conveners for having really invited us to attend this meeting in this very important high-level meeting. My name is Ildefonso Kindi. I'm from Burundi, and I work in the peace team, a religious organization that is striving and working in the humanitarian development. My intervention will provide you with information on the experience that we have been able to collect with various communities, Christian communities in East Africa and West Africa. Before continuing my presentation, allow me to tell you briefly my own history. And my mother was killed when I was 3. Because of the crisis that my country went through. Only after 30 years that I came to see her picture. You know very well, only her picture was seen after 30 years. And so this creates a vacuum in my life. Unfortunately, I am not the only one and only child to have gone through such a tragedy. I was born in a country that witnessed a series of violent upheavals. Particularly, there is this feeling that I really I lost someone who was quite dear to me, my mum, and also I committed myself as a peace builder right after the various obstacles I went through. and so in order to promote dialogue, in order to solve the problems peacefully, and also ensure. And this is part of my daily work, and this mission seems to me a noble mission to really. It represents quite a lot of challenges to be overcome for the promotion of peace and inclusion. Although some religious confessions present common denominator, they still have differences, which creates untrust, mistrust, and and quarrels inside interconfessional, interreligious really peace promotes peace, and so the lack of collaboration, particularly, is lack of collaboration we need to put an end to lack of collaboration, and we need all these things lead to violence. Here, we promote an inclusive environment, as is the one that we see here today. We recognize that political leaders really are elected by the grassroots populations that are member of the churches and also member of the religious groups. And so elected councils really are always respected because they have considerable influence, and so they are the persons to promote advice, particularly, and the dialogue is quite important among the religious leaders, and political leaders will make it possible for religious leaders to develop understanding of the politics that is being followed, and also to express their points of views and provide useful advice to improve the policies, particularly on the basis of which politicians really act. I'd like to really to call upon any religious or political leaders to promote the space that is certain and sure in order to remove the vulnerability and decrease vulnerability. We would like to encourage political and religious leaders to work together on their to work on ways and means how to promote really best practices, and really rest assured that you work with networks and people who are capable to facilitate and promote solutions, and people need to listen, and this will help you to develop policies and implement policies with a real impact within the community. And to the political leaders, religious leaders have an influence, particularly working with their communities, and they are valued for the contributions that they can make in their communities. And so we need to work. Half of the global population is under 30 years of age, but it doesn't weigh heavily in the decision-making processes, and the youth needs to be heard, and their voices need to be heard in the decision-making process. Better prevent than cure. And so we need to raise a generation that is peaceful. And so we need to integrate education for peace in basic education more particularly. If there is no inter-religious dialogue, and if there is no friendship that is built right from childhood, then people can be taken away by the speeches that are violent, and so people may become enemies of their own communities. And so political leaders and religious leaders need to work hand in hand, particularly so that the children can go to the same school, to the same public institutions for work, particularly people can mix easily and work easily. And so one of the most important recommendations of the action plan of Rabat, signed here in Morocco in 2012, to encourage a positive media discourse, and also to encourage positive speeches in other media. And so to close, the golden rule, don't do to others what you don't want people to do to you. Being convinced that you all, men and women, religious leaders and political leaders, the question that I would like to float to everyone, do everything in your capacity to prepare a better world for tomorrow. I'd like to thank you immensely. I'd like to give the floor to my colleague to deliver her presentation.
Firstly, I want to thank the Inter-Parliamentary Union and the Kingdom of Morocco for providing grassroots young people to come to these platforms and speak. My name is Hila Yoon, and I'm a peace builder from Afghanistan and one of the young SDG leaders recognized by the United Nations and General Secretary Office on Youth. As I stand here, I consider myself one of the privileged ones who can speak here and engage with international community and speak here while millions of Afghan girls and women cannot. And that is why I'm amplifying the voices of millions of Afghan women and girls from my country who are still inside Afghanistan with no future. As we stand here today with hundreds of different faith, religious leaders, and peace builders and parliamentarians, I want to remind everyone that today is day 638 since the Taliban shut down schools and universities towards Afghan girls, the only country where basic education and basic human rights have been taken away from girls and women just because of their gender. While Islam is a religion that promotes and encourages education and gender equality, the current government does not have any religious justification into why they have shut down universities and schools towards women and girls. The very first word of the Quran, which was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was Iqra. It means read. The first university in the world was established by a Muslim woman, Fatima, and fun fact is it's actually in Morocco. It shows how Islam promotes women and education and do not deny them. The country where I come from, religion has always been used by many people to prove their wrongdoings throughout the decades. My parents lived in Afghanistan and witnessed many power come and go, and so was the generation before them. We still don't have a grave for my grandfather because we couldn't find his dead body due to war. My mother was shot 2 times and left in the basement to die, but she still survived. Millions of Afghans died in Afghanistan, and millions of them became refugees and left the country due to war. And that's what have been happening in Afghanistan throughout decades. But still, many families are shown resilience, and they educated their girls and went to school. And that's why I'm an example of a family that always supported education, and I'm standing here in front of everyone to speak. When I started my organization called Afghan Youth Ambassador for Peace Organization, a grassroots civil society organization working towards localizing peace and education in eastern provinces, I was hopeful that through localization, we can achieve sustainable peace. We trained more than 100 young men and women in Afghanistan on preventing violent extremism, interfaith dialogue, peace building, and gender equality. We conducted local peace building dialogues with religious leaders, tribal leaders, on young women, access to education from Islamic perspective, and peace building. We supported more than 5,000 families in Afghanistan through our project and making women the first responders to humanitarian crisis. What I learned throughout involving with many stakeholders in my community is to always have a bottom-to-top approach to dialogues while solve many problems. We need more spaces for everyone to listen and make sure everyone is included. We need more tolerance and listening, which is what my religion and other religions are promoting. And that is why God has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen more and speak less. Today, with all the restriction on women education, freedom of movement, Afghan women are still showing resilience and fighting for their rights, but we do need the international community to stand with us. Don't represent us, give us spaces to speak. We are not the victims, we are the heroes and are from our country. Today at this conference, I want to address that to the religious leaders and the parliamentarians here to provide more spaces for dialogues and engagement and work with young people and don't just invite us to fill the quota. We do want to be heard, and we don't want to be involved only in the process of consultation and not implementation. Focus and provide opportunities for grassroots initiatives and those specially led by young women. Let's make something out of this conference and not just back-to-back speeches and fancy receptions. Every small commitment counts, and start with connecting with local leaders and making a small commitment after you leave this conference. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hila and Ildefonse, for this very important message. Pour conclure cette séance, j'ai le...
I'm pleased to invite to the podium the President of the Council, the House of Councillors, Mr. Naim Mayara. The President of the House of Councillors is going to read out his message.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of Allah. Honorable Andre Azoulay, the King's Counselor for His Majesty, Mr. Pacheco, the President of the IUP, the Honorable Ladies and Gentlemen Presidents and the representative of the National Parliament, the Honorable President of the Arab Parliament, African Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, the President and Presidents of the religious faiths, the President of the Wali, the President of the region, the Mayor of the city of Marrakesh, ladies and gentlemen, member of the Diplomatic Corps, ladies, representative of the mass media, dear attendees, ladies and gentlemen, after the opening session, which was during which we heard the speech of His Majesty to the conference, His Majesty gave, as in the form of orientations to the participants in this very high-level meeting. I'm honored to really officially declare opening of this meeting, and particularly on the basis of the relevant program that was given to you, expressing a welcome to all of you to the land of Morocco, and wishing you a nice day among us, and also wishing you very positive contributions, and peace and blessing of Allah be on you. I declare officially open this session.
The session has been concluded. If I may, just three very, very quick housekeeping announcements. All delegates are warmly invited to a buffet lunch in the pool area right outside the reception of the Movenpick Hotel, which is annexed to this conference center. Number two, please kindly make sure to leave the headphones on your seats before you leave. And number three, we will see you again at 2:30 p.m. in the Salle Royale for the high-level panels of our conference. Have a good break. Thank you so much.